God bless you all. So today here we have Brother Avery, Sister Chloe, and we have Travis and Danny. Let me see. This should- Down. There we go. There should be no feedback now. All right. So this discussion is going to be very simple. The party downstairs, they believe in the freedom to choose to abort. And the party next to me, to my left and to my right, they believe in pro life. So, Danny, Travis, if you fellas would like to give an introduction to your beliefs, why you've come to those conclusions, and then obviously logic, Chloe, you can do the same, and we'll get this discussion on the way.
So how long the introduction?
I mean, let's keep it, let's keep it a minute. I mean, let's just.
Cool.
Go ahead, Danny.
All right.
Travis.
Thanks for having me on. Only a minute for my position, but basically, I want to first say that being pro-life, being pro-choice, it is a spectrum. So while I would identify as pro-choice, I may not agree with everything that Slurms and Travis has to say, but broadly speaking, I support the legal right for women to abort their fetuses or their embryos, zygotes, for whatever reason they want. There is a point where I start to care and I no longer take a position. And that's when the fetus exhibits pain behavior, if it has some kind of mental history, if it has a kind of a human form or a mind. Those things I'm very sensitive to. And so at that point, I would no longer be identify as pro-choice. I'd probably abstain from the debate, and I would sympathize with both sides. But generally, I don't care about zygotes. I don't care about embryos and early fetal development. I support the legal right for women to abort those things for whatever reason they want.
All right, Travis, you're muted. Just unmute yourself, Travis. Yeah, there should be a mute button there somewhere. There we go.
Hey. So also I'll start by thanking you guys for having me on here. Yeah, likewise. It's a shame our third person couldn't show up today, but it's nice to be here with Danny. And like you said, we may not agree on everything, but I think generally speaking, there's a difference between, there's obviously the moral question as well as the the legal question. And so basically my argument, I'm perfectly open to talking about the ethics, but you're right to do it. So yeah, I'll keep it short. I'll save it, I guess, for the back and forth. But yeah.
Okay, Chloe.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. My name is Pro-Life Chloe. I'm a biology major in college. And I'm here with my brother Avery, fighting for life. And this is something I believe God has called me to do, not only because I'm Christian, and I believe that life begins at conception. And yeah, we can talk about that and things like that. So can't wait. Travis, Danny, thank you for joining us here.
All right, Mr. Avery.
For sure. In these type of realms, I go by pro-life logic. I definitely believe in protecting those who are vulnerable, and who are more vulnerable than the unborn children. You can't even give out words yet. So definitely for preserving life at its earliest stages, at conception, and so on and so forth from there. So excited to get into this conversation, all for the glory of God. God has created all of us in his image, and we do not have the right to murder our children. So here we go.
All right, perfect. So I guess I'll start this panel discussion with what Danny said. Danny said that there comes a point in time where he no longer believes in abortion, and he said that he is 100% okay with a fetus getting aborted. So Danny, does that mean that you do not believe that a fetus is a human?
I'm fine with saying fetuses are humans. To clarify my position, early fetal development, embryos, and zygotes, those are things I really do not care about, and that's why I support abortion at that level. There is going to be a point where a fetus, I do start caring. I think that, for instance, I'm not very sympathetic to those that are pro late term abortions just because they are discontent with the sex of the baby or the fetus. I think that's kind of gross. I think there's been a history of that, but not only with fetuses but infants. And so, yeah, I'm against those sorts of those sorts of infanticides or abortions.
Okay, but Danny, let's get to the meat and potatoes here, just to get the conversation flowing here. So you're okay with calling it a human.
Mhm.
So why do you believe that it's okay to abort a fetus, even though you are okay with calling it a baby? Travis, Danny, you can go ahead, and then obviously they'll respond to your answer, and you guys can get going. So just to make it clear, I'm not misrepresenting you. Danny just said that he's okay calling the fetus a human, even though at that point in time he wouldn't feel bad about that fetus getting aborted. Why don't you feel bad about the fetus that you're okay calling a human to get aborted?
Yeah, because what I care about in humans are basically 3 or 4 things. Okay, I care about whether there's an exhibition of pain behavior, which is different than pain. Pain behavior and pain are not the same thing. Past mental states in history, if something had goals and desires and hopes and dreams and memories, I'm much more inclined to protect it. And if it takes a human form or a human mind, either one, then I'm going to be more sensitive to that kind of thing. Now, that doesn't mean that therefore the mother doesn't matter, but it just means that suddenly it gets more complicated for me, and it's a lot more gray, and I would sympathize with both sides. But yes, I hope I haven't missed the question. I haven't let Travis talk either. I don't know what his position is.
Yes, Travis, you can add to that, or just add your position, and then Chloe and Logic can respond.
Sure. Yeah, I think that ended with a question for him. I wanted to give him the chance to respond. And also, real quick, just for the chat, because I didn't mention it in my opening, just so you guys know, I had a power outage, which is why I'm looming in the dark here, just for clarity. Hopefully it comes back on soon. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot there. My primary argument, I mean, there's different versions of it that have been kind of repeated ad nauseum, but I'm where I'm coming from is more from the bodily autonomy point. Whether or not, at any stage, basically, whether or not you consider the fetus a child, I mean, I'm
Do you
fine
consider it a
with that.
child? Just so we flesh everything out. Yeah, go ahead.
At some point, undoubtedly, yeah. I'm just less interested in that conversation because it doesn't really make a difference as far as my reasoning for wanting to allow women to to have the option to abort the pregnancy. Basically, because if you grant that the fetus is a person, then now we have a situation where we have two people with conflicting rights. So the question then becomes, how do we justify prioritizing the child's right to life over the mother's bodily autonomy, because we don't do that ever. Like the minute a child is born, they lose all those rights. Like they no longer are entitled to the rights of the body of the mother. So basically, coming from the perspective of, I want to live somewhere with the most amount of liberty and only restrict things when there is a justified reason to do so versus the opposite. Like, I don't think it's rational to start from the position of everything is illegal and we have to justify what is legal. So I've just yet to come across any rational justification to say that the state has any business forcing someone to remain pregnant against their will.
All right, so we have two different positions here before Chloe and Logic response. Position A, which is Danny, the fetuses, he considers them human. He mentioned why it's okay in his mindset these fetuses are getting aborted, even though he would consider them human. And then Travis, in short, is saying that it's about a woman's issue once the baby is born. The woman seems to lose her rights, and he thinks that it should be legal for those reasons, as he's mentioned. So we have two different things. Chloe, Logic, feel free to respond to whatever it is that you guys want to respond to.
Yeah, so real quick, I would just like to point out that unlike the pro-life position, you ask any pro-lifer, what is it about a fetus, an unborn child, that makes it a person, makes it alive? When we're able to answer when life begins, and because life begins at conception, therefore that's the moment it is a human being. I've talked to many pro-choicers, whether they be atheist or Christian or Buddhist, doesn't really matter the worldview you hold. Pro-choicers tend to have different marks as to when they're okay with abortion. To me, it's very inconsistent, and Lord willing, during this conversation, debate, whatever you guys want to call it, you'll be able to see that. Because I could ask a question to Travis about bodily autonomy, and he'll be like, no, that's not okay at all. But and then I can ask a different question to Danny, and I just wanted to show you guys to keep that in the back of your mind, how the pro-choice position is very inconsistent and they can't agree on anything, though they're on the same side.
Yeah, at what stage? Let me ask, because we got Danny's part where he says that there's some comfortability where he's like, yeah, no, you cannot abort at this point. So I want to ask Travis, at what point do you say that abortion is wrong, if at any point?
Yeah, to clarify, I don't. Yeah, coming from the perspective of, bodily autonomy, it's not about when. I'm less concerned with. I'm sorry. There's a lot to kind of. So, for instance, like he had mentioned, like late-term abortions, which it's worth noting that that's not an actual a clinical term. It doesn't actually have any medical significance. Late term, as far as a pregnancy, it refers to like anything beyond 41 weeks. So anything after just the normal term of like 37 weeks. But as far as an abortion, I know the CDC will say later abortions, referring to something that's like after 15 weeks. And I know like Lindsey Graham and some politicians have tried to use some number as this is considered a late term abortion, but it's not really a thing. And it's generally like after the first trimester. But most of the thing that's important about that, though, because this is going to be a big point of discussion, I feel like, in this conversation, is like, what point it stops being unethical. But
Is there a
abortions
point
don't
for you?
happen at an actual late. I'm sorry?
Is there a point for you where you would say if abortion happens at this stage, it's wrong?
Well, I was getting to that.
Oh, sorry.
So, no, you're fine. So anything that takes place, what we think of, what gets evoked when you hear like late term abortion, which again isn't a thing, but let's say something wild like 8 months. Those don't happen. The only time those happen is if the mother's life is in direct harm, like immediate harm, because if they were to continue with the pregnancy, and at that point it's viable usually, and either way they're doing a cesarean, and it's not resulting in the death of a child at all. I think only like 11% of abortions occur after even 13 weeks, which we're nowhere near what gets evoked in our minds when we talk about later abortions. We're still talking about like first trimester. Only 11% don't happen within 13 weeks, and anything that's happening after 20 weeks is usually because restricted access, like they weren't able to get the abortion, or they just from their doctor discovered that there was a problem and they have to abort early. And again, this usually
Travis,
never
respectfully, my friend, you haven't gotten to like the answer to the question. I'm asking you if
I have, because I'm trying to
part?
dispel the notion. I'm trying to dispel the notion that there are these late term abortions.
Okay,
like,
we get it. You don't believe in late term abortion, but when for you, logic is asking.
No, it's not that
you.
I don't believe.
I think his service is bad.
Okay, Travis, you lagged. You there, Travis?
Sorry, my back. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so Travis, logic is asking. We get it. The whole notion of late term abortion, the phrasing of it, most of those abortions don't happen at that point. But logic is asking you a direct personal question. When do you believe too far is too far?
I don't think there is at any point where it's too far to abort a pregnancy. But I was just trying to make clear for the audience and everybody that when abortions happen, when a pregnancy is an abortion, a pregnancy is aborted later, you're not killing a baby that's like 8 months developed. That's not what that means. Those abortions don't happen. I just wanted to make clear because there's a lot of misinformation out there about later abortions.
No problem. Let's say the mother was aborting an 8-month baby. Would you say that that's wrong?
That's not legal anywhere, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm asking, would you say that that's wrong? I forget legal. Would you say that that's morally wrong? Because there's certain things. Legality doesn't determine morality. No. So it's not. You wouldn't say it's morally wrong?
I'm saying that. I'm reiterating that it doesn't happen when I say that. But the thing is, like I said, if they're getting an abortion at 8 months, it's not resulting in the death of the child unless like there's by accident. That's not how that works.
No, no. So I'm not talking about some type of emergency where there's a pregnancy complication. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about perfectly healthy pregnancy, perfectly healthy process. If a mother chooses to abort her baby,
her bodily autonomy. He's giving you the argument back. She decides at 8 months to abort the baby.
Yeah. So again, at 8 months, I didn't answer yet.
Go ahead.
At 8 months, it's probably viable, and it's not going to result. It would be a C-section, and it wouldn't result in the death of the child. So,
my friend, that's not what I'm asking.
It's not relevant to this conversation. That is what you're asking.
No, I'm asking you something very, very straightforward, bro. It's very simple. I'm not asking.
You're saying, do I think it's okay? And I said yes.
Okay, so thank you. So it is okay to abort an 8-month-old baby. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say at 9 months. Let's say at 9 months.
No, because you're using deceptive logic there. First of all, we don't abort babies.
That's bodily autonomy.
No. Can I please? We don't abort babies. We abort pregnancies. That's what abortion means. If you need, if you were having an abortion at 8 months, but because you're saying that I'm saying it's okay to abort an 8-month baby.
No, I haven't said anything.
Resulting in the child dying, and then that's not what I'm saying at all, and that's not what happened.
No. I think I'm being very clear. Okay, I'm being very, very clear. When we're talking about abortion, let's make sure that we are on the same terms and everything. When we're talking about abortion, we are talking about the termination of the baby's life. Okay, the baby's life in the womb. That's what we're talking about. What is abortion?
What is pregnancy? What is pregnancy? I want to get his definition on what pregnancy is, because like you're aborting a pregnancy, you can quote unquote abort a pregnancy through a miscarriage. So what's your definition? What is pregnancy to you guys? Because as pro-lifers, pregnancy is literally about having a child going through the gestational period. So what is pregnancy? That's what I'm trying to compute in my what you think it is.
No, for sure. We agree on the definition of pregnancy. And it's not that I have a special definition of abortion. The actual clinical definition of an abortion, you're talking about aborting the pregnancy. And it may or may not result in the death of the fetus, depending on if it's viable or if there's any complications. But again, I'm not saying when you phrase it as, Travis says it's okay to abort a baby at 8 months, that has implications of something that I don't believe. You're saying,
well, that's what we're trying to. That's why I'm asking you something straight. That's why I'm asking. Look, brother. So I'm asking something very straight. I'm not asking about stopping the pregnancy to where you got to do a C-section and then you bring the baby out, like you stop.
That's an abortion early. That is an abortion.
I understand what you're saying. So what I'm saying is, I mean, an abortion, a termination of the pregnancy, of the life of the baby, or you terminate the life of the baby.
the purpose is to end the life of the unborn child. Because every abortion, the goal at the end of it is to end the life of a baby. That's what the pro-choice is arguing, the so-called choice, to end the life of the fetus. So it's going to be aborted or come out dead unless they do an incomplete abortion. Because otherwise it's called birth. Otherwise, the process
All right.
of
So
Right.
Chloe, finish your statement,
No.
and then Travis
because
responds.
he's
And Danny
completely
can hop in
different
too.
things and trying to redefine words.
Okay,
It's
so
not
so Chloe, we
Yeah.
we hear you there. Okay, so Travis,
No, she's right, man.
yeah,
We're not
Travis.
we're not gonna be able to have this conversation if we're like the words we're saying don't mean what we're saying.
Okay, so
Don't mean the same
Travis,
thing.
let me ask you a question, Travis.
Well, they don't mean
Is
what.
it okay,
Yeah.
Travis? Is it okay for a woman who is pregnant to kill their baby so that their baby will not be alive? Is that okay? In simple terms, that's as simple as it can get.
I'm trying to be as clear as possible.
No,
I'm not trying
Travis,
to
it's just
be
a yes or
difficult
no.
here.
It's just,
But
it's just
no, on a lot, no. And the constant interrupting is, I'm trying to, I'm not,
There's like
I'm
a
just
lag.
trying
There's
to
like a- there's
be
like
as clear
a-
as
there's like a
possible.
delay. Yeah, I think there's
Okay.
like a delay in your end. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's not ethical to unalive an 8-month baby. No.
Okay. Beautiful.
If I could
All
say
right.
something, unless you wanted to say something, Avery.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So just so that let me just get it. So just so that the chat knows, Travis believes that it is not okay for an 8-month pregnant woman to kill their baby at that stage. Okay, so
Yeah.
now we advance.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Danny.
Wait, before you go, Danny, sorry, because I literally asked this question probably 7-8 minutes ago to get to a point. You know, I was trying to see how he's gonna answer to get to a point, but it took us this long to get here. But now we're here now. Okay, so it's not okay for a mother to kill her child, her 8-month-old child. My question to you is this: when is it okay to Travis for a mother to kill her baby, her preborn baby, her unborn child? When is that okay? Or let me ask, at what stage specifically does it become not okay? What stage specifically?
So it is okay at any stage to abort a pregnancy. I would just refer, I want to use correct language here. I'm going to debate as honestly as I can. I'm going to try to be an honest interlocutor, but you're intentionally asking me questions that are worded in a way to suggest that I'm saying something that I'm not. And I don't think that's fair.
This is why I avoided using the word abort. This is why I didn't say abort. I said, at what point?
Why would we avoid the word abort? This is about abortion.
Because what you're talking about, every time we talk about abortion and we talk about the result of abortion, the ending of the life, you're saying, well, when I say abortion, not all abortion results in the ending of the life. So we're talking specifically about the type of abortion that ends the life of the baby. So forget the abortion of just stopping a pregnancy early so the baby is born early. I'm talking about the ending of the baby's life.
I understand that that's what we're talking about, but the reason I brought up the 8-month abortion was to dispel the idea that 8-month pregnant people go get their babies killed, because that doesn't happen. That's not what that isn't a thing. That's why I wanted to clarify that.
Okay? I got you.
But yeah, as far as aborting any pregnancy, so as far as aborting any pregnancy, I don't have a term. I don't have a term or a month where I think it's okay versus not okay. I think, I believe that someone who is pregnant has the right to abort a pregnancy at any time.
Yeah, even if it ends the life of the child at any time.
Yes, because that's not the fault of the pregnant person that
all right, beautiful.
It's not viable.
Beautiful. All right, it's not viable. There we go. So we got the reason of it.
But I want to let Danny have a chance to speak.
For sure. Danny's going to get in here. I just wanted to make sure that we got your position clearly, so that we can address that in the future of this conversation. All right, go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, it's really brief. Of course, language is important. Of course, terms are important. But we all agree here that no matter what labels we use, it doesn't change what it is. Okay, so if I use the term baby, child, offspring, member of a genetic population, individual, person, it won't change what the properties of a zygote, let's say. Okay, I'm willing to use your terms or whatever terms you want. But the issue is that that's not going to make a difference in terms of what I know about it, what a zygote is. And I know, as far as I know, I think it's very likely that zygotes don't have a mind. They don't have any mental history. They don't exhibit any pain behavior, and they don't take any kind of human form, right? Call that what you want. You can call that a homeless person. You can call it a baby. You can call it a human. It doesn't change those four things.
Or a vegetable.
Yeah, you can call. I mean, the term, right? Terms are meant to communicate with each other and trying to understand each other. In a lot of cases with abortion, what happens is actually terms do the opposite, right? Now they obstruct the conversation. This person doesn't want to use that term. That person doesn't want to use this term. And then we're debating about how we're using the terms. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change what a zygote, the properties of a zygote, the properties of embryo, and the properties of a fetus at different various stages of pregnancy. So if we could try, I mean, I'm fine to use your terms, so long as we understand what the properties are of the thing that we're talking about. I'm indifferent to how we're using the terms.
Beautiful. Okay. Chloe, did you want to say something? Because I'm gonna follow you. I have some things to say.
So they have to have a mind. They have to have, is it brain activity, Danny, that a fetus has to have in order for it to be considered?
There are four things that I care about in no specific, one doesn't necessarily weigh over the other, but mind, human form, pain behavior, and mental history. Okay, so past goals, dreams, hopes, desires, whatever, right? Those four things don't really, like one of them could be demonstrated in a fetus, but I think together they really kind of affirm my position. Zygotes don't seem to have those things. Embryos don't seem to have those things. Seems like fetuses start to have those things at some point. Okay, in which case then my position is revised. I'm no longer pro-choice. I either abstain or actually sympathize with pro-lifers, right? If and I gave an example of if a person wanted to abort their fetus because they didn't want a daughter or a son, that seems nasty to me, and I'm against it. Now, there's a whole different question of what I would do politically, whether I would punish this person or not, or frown upon them. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a whole question.
That's not the topic. That's like
right. So I don't mean to say anything about that, but that's my position.
Okay, so a born person, hypothetically speaking, doesn't have like a born person, like someone outside of the womb, right? Trying to use distinguish between an unborn and a born person. Someone who's outside the womb doesn't have the capability to any of those capabilities. So they're basically like unborn fetus outside of the womb. Like you were saying, memories, right? People who can't recall.
No, babies exhibit pain behavior, and they take the human form.
I'm saying like an adult, someone who like can't feel pain, right? They lose.
Do they have a mental history?
Of course, but I'm saying we're talking about.
I care about.
We're trying to distinguish. Sorry.
Why though?
What is it about? So the same things, right? A fetus can't recall memory, but at this stage, there's something happens. A human being, a born person, cannot also recall memory.
That's not my criteria. To clarify, they have. Just because you can't remember your mental history doesn't mean you don't have one.
So an infant can't recall any memory of being in the womb. Why is it okay?
Right, but they exhibit other things like pain behavior, and they have a human form.
But okay, go ahead, God Logic.
Yeah, I'm just confused about where he gets this criteria from.
These are just things I care about.
That's
just arbitrarily.
I don't know what you mean by arbitrarily.
Like where do you get this standard from? Because you're saying this is your criteria. Where do you get this from? Like
my view is that all fundamental preferences or irreducible preferences are caused by the external world and not inferred to. So to ask where I got it from is to ask what caused my psychology to be this way, and that could be anything from a biological cause, an environmental cause, the way I was raised. I mean, it's not an inference, right? Our preferences for how the world is to be, or for food, or for movies, or for political views. To me, they're going to bottom out at some kind of fundamental preference, and at that point, there's no inference that's being made because it's fundamental.
Wait, so you're saying that it's fun. What you're saying is your criteria is that it comes from a fundamental standpoint of your outlook on life, and really, like, is it objective or is it subjective? Is basically what I'm getting to.
Preferences are subjective. I take them to be.
So is what you're saying, is what this criteria that you're saying, is it subjective? A subjective criteria?
Yeah, it's my preferences.
Okay, so it's not really. It is arbitrary. It's just
no. What do you mean by arbitrary? You mean by arbitrary? You mean subjective?
Oh yeah, because what you're saying, this criteria that you're giving, this stuff that it's from Danny. It's not objective. It's not like factual, but it's what you take as what's important or meaningful, right, to you.
First of all, they're facts about my preferences, and it would be weird to say that. Do you prefer to eat human feces or a Whataburger, right? And if you say I prefer to eat a Whataburger, is that arbitrary? I mean,
but because we're okay. So let me make sure I get your position correctly as well. So you're saying you agree that that in let's say the embryo, the zygote is a human. You agree with that? You have no problem saying that.
Term. Yeah, it's a
human. It's a baby.
Whatever term you want to use.
Okay, but these are. But you're saying, but you only care about this human when they begin to show maybe some human form, show some history of mental capability,
yeah.
And pain receptors, I guess, right?
Pain
behavior. Okay, so until that point, you don't care about this human. Why?
Right. Why? Because they don't exhibit those features.
But why does that matter? Why do they have to exhibit those features in order for them to have value?
Again, preferences, as our fundamental preferences, to ask why is a weird question because they're fundamental, right? We have preferences for base preferences. Now, we could have orders of desires and preferences, but they reduce down to a set of things that we ultimately care about. And those preferences are not explained inferentially. There's no argument for them. There's no here's my justification kind of thing. They're just caused, at least on my view, they're caused by environmental conditions like the way we're raised, biological stuff, or anything. I don't answer the question why.
The problem that I'm seeing is because anyone can do this. This is why I say it's arbitrary. Anyone, matter of fact, we have stuff in human history where people are doing this, where people look at Jews, for example, and say they're not humans because they don't have these particular features, or maybe they are humans but don't have the same value as this type of human because they don't have this type of feature, or they're from here. And the same with blacks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So and so that's why they can, treat and enslave a certain group of people because that value is arbitrarily made up based on what they say, what they care about, right? And so. And that's what I'm saying. It's an arbitrary. Your position is arbitrary. It's based on nothing.
Food preferences are arbitrary? Do you think your food preferences are arbitrary?
My food preferences aren't about human value.
I'm just pointing out. Look, I look at values as reduced to preferences. That's my view of value, right? So if you're saying that, if you and I agree that food preferences is a matter of, that's about preference. Food preference is about very subjective, right? We agree on that. Now, you might think that morality or whatever is objective. That's fine. The point is that if you would be committed to saying that people's preferences in food is just arbitrary, but no one thinks that way. It's not random.
No. That's completely different from what we're talking about. If I was talking about and saying a burger, this is what causes a burger to have value, right? Mm-hmm. To have value and meaning. Then these subjective reasons that I'm giving would be arbitrary. They're just subjective. It's just stuff that I'm coming up with. I don't know
what you mean by value, but what I mean by value is basically a preference. If I value something,
so is there value in human life?
I prefer certain human lives and not others.
Right. So, at what point does a human life not matter?
It depends on the circumstance, right? I don't prefer for Hitler to be alive when he was alive, right? I wouldn't prefer that, right? I prefer you guys to
Why?
be alive. Y'all are decent people, okay?
Thank you. I like you too.
Yeah, okay. So the point is that I don't prefer. I mean, if a mother really doesn't want to be pregnant, right? Even if I did prefer certain kinds of zygotes to be alive, then I would just weigh my preferences, right? So,
What do you mean? What do you mean? Weigh your what do you mean by that? By weigh your.
We have competing preferences, right? So you might prefer to go to Whataburger, but also prefer to be on a diet, or you have competing desires or something, and one wins out, right? So
why? How does one win?
Well, it's a matter of psychology, really. It depends.
It's arbitrary. It means it has it's nothing.
I don't know what you mean by arbitrary. Again, if you decide to go to Applebee's rather than Chili's, is that arbitrary?
You're not deciding life or death.
Okay, then you have to define arbitrary, because when I use the term arbitrary, I mean random and basically something that's not really
not based in anything.
No,
not
but
based
it's
in anything.
But I said there's a causal basis.
No, dude. Look, when you're saying that, okay, based on my experience, I tend to put more importance or value in these certain features, right? These certain features I tend to gravitate towards more as being more important. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we get down to the nitty gritty of the why of that, and you just say, oh, that's just because that's just what I care about. That's not based on anything.
Look, do you think about this? If you care about X, well, you might care about X because of Y, and you might care about Y because of Z, and you can keep on doing, but it doesn't go ad infinitum. There's going to be a point where you just care about things, and there's the bottom. It doesn't make sense to ask why, and that's what you're doing. You're asking. I'm telling you that. Wait, look. Do you think there's an infinite regress of carings or desires?
I think that when we're talking about whether or not a human life has value, and okay, like for example, why is it?
Could you answer the question? Do you think there's an infinite regress of preferences?
What do you mean by that?
So if I prefer X, that might be because I prefer Y, right? And if I prefer Y, it might be because I prefer Z. And it keeps on going. Do you think it's an infinite regress?
Not when it comes to life or death situations like abortion.
Okay, so there's a base preference, and then that base preference, when you ask, well, why do you have that preference? It's a nonsense question.
No, it's not a nonsense question. You have to have a foundation and a basis.
Regress.
No, so for example, well, let's get into this. Why do you believe that certain humans should be punished for things that they do, for example?
So I'm a moral particularist, which means that it depends on the context. You have to give me a context by which I can judge.
Oh, but judge what? Why judge?
Well, I have my preferences.
Again, what if the other person has their preferences and say, no, I don't deserve to be punished for this?
Well, then we have conflicting preferences.
So should your preference then, or what decides which preference is correct? Is there a correct?
I don't know what you mean by correct in that case.
Meaning, okay, if I committed murder, right? Let's say I murdered your mom, Lord, God forbid, murdered your mom, right? Unalived your mom. We're on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I unalived your mom. Okay.
Yeah, we're not. On TikTok, right?
Okay, we're good here. You would want me to be punished for that, correct? That I deserve to be punished for murdering your mother.
I have a very weird view of punishment, but yeah, I'd be angry and I would want to retaliate if that's what you mean.
Okay. So what about, would I deserve punishment? Should I get repercussions for my actions?
When you're using the term deserve, is that depending on a stance or a preference, or independent of a stance or preference?
That's the question to you.
Okay, well, I'm asking you use the term. That's a term I don't use. I didn't use.
You don't use deserve? You don't think certain actions deserve?
Look, if I deserve, do I prefer to cause pain to you because of what you did? Sure.
Yeah, I'm asking about deserving though. Like
again, so now you're using a notion of deserve differently than me, because the way I use deserve is tied to preferences or stances of people, right? But you're using a weird sense of deserve that's independent of what we care about or preferences or stances.
No, this isn't weird. This is like foundational. It's weird when you disconnect from the objectivity. I'm about to tell you because when you're in a world of subjectivity.
What's the question? What do you take my question to be?
Say that again.
What do you take the question to be? I just want to make sure you understand the question.
Well, I'm asking you. I asked you the question.
No, but you're not making. You didn't make yourself clear what you meant by deserve.
So let me make myself clear.
Okay.
I am.
But the
Okay.
question is, what is a stance independent desert?
No, so no. I'm asking you, when you say it's weird to you to use a term like deserve, you don't use these words.
No, I didn't say that.
You did say that.
Let me be very clear about what I said. It's weird to use the term deserve stance independently, as independent from a preference or stance. So now the onus is on you to decide to describe what you mean by deserve a stance independent desert, or what it means to stance independently deserve something. That to me is nonsense.
No. So let's keep it as basic as possible. If I
But
commit
we're
murder,
outside of basic.
no,
It's not
just follow me. If I commit murder, do I deserve punishment for my murderous action?
If what you mean is if you're asking about my preferences, then yes,
Okay.
I do
Now,
prefer
if I
to
now
cause pain to you for what you did.
got you. Now, if thank you. So now, me as a murderer, if I say, well, according to my preference, I do not deserve to be punished. I don't deserve that
And you don't
according to
prefer
my
to be
preference.
punished. You don't want pain. I get that.
So do I? So now, what wins out? Should
What do you
I?
mean by wins out?
Should I be punished for my murder? Yes or
The
no?
notion of should there is independent from preferences, right?
Yes.
So I don't know what a stance independent should is. You have to describe what you mean by
Ought,
that.
ought I be punished? It's just like,
Yeah,
why
what
is it so
ought-
hard?
I know what an ought is as stance
Okay, good.
dependent, right? But I do not know the way you're using ought as stance
I
independent.
think we all know what I'm saying. I'm being as simple as possible, Danny, and you're smart. Should I? Ought I? Do I deserve to be punished? Should I be punished for murder?
I already
Yes
answered this
or
question.
no?
The answer is yes, right? Based on
Okay,
my
thank
preferences.
you. Okay, all right, beautiful.
This is
So
not the question you asked.
I'm just moving on forward with the question. So if yes, I should be punished for my answer.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, for my murder. Then, according to your preference, according to my preference, I shouldn't be punished for murder. I shouldn't. So, what happens then after that?
What's
Am
the-
I like? Should like? How do we decide what happens after that?
I don't understand the question. I hope I win and I hope you lose.
But okay, so if you're saying that according to my preference, yes, versus your preference, no, it's just a preference at this point. What
Yeah.
wins out? What decides if I then get
I
punished
I
or
don't
not?
know what you're. Look, it's like. Please
Danny,
give
this is
me
what
3
he's
minutes.
asking.
Give me
Danny.
3 minutes.
Danny, this is what he's asking. He has his preference. You have your preference, right?
Mhm.
Who decides what preference ultimately is the deciding
Yeah,
factor?
that is what I'm considering to be a nonsense question, and let me explain why. I look at values, especially moral values, as a matter of preference, just like I look at taste as a matter of preference. Okay, so watch this. Suppose God logic finds pizza not tasty, and
Pro-life
I
logic.
find it to be tasty.
Pro-life
Now,
logic.
who has the better palate? Now, that
Excuse me.
notion of
Put some
better.
put some respect on my name. It's pro-life logic, man.
I'm sorry. Pro-life logic says I don't prefer eating pizza. And let's say I prefer eating pizza. It would be a weird question to ask which preference is better, because what does that notion of better
So
mean?
False
Danny,
equivocation.
no
This is
foundation.
crazy.
There's
So
no
Danny,
foundation.
in short, for the audience in the chat,
I've got a
you're
quick
saying-
comment.
Yes, no worries, Travis. Just for the audience in the chat, you're equating pizza and preferences with food with getting an abortion.
Life
That's
and
the
death.
same thing.
Ending a human life.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
that.
saying this, that we value things. Values are a matter of preferences. Now, there are categories of preferences. Sometimes we say these are preferences considering chivalry or morality
Danny,
or theological
Danny,
preferences.
Let me ask
whatever.
you a question. Yeah, let me ask you a question because Travis wants to say something.
Mhm.
I used to wake up at 6 a.m. every day to go to abortion clinics to try to tell women not to commit abortions and these atrocities. I did it for 2-3 years. Many times these women would say it's an inconvenience. And this is why they would commit these abortions, because it's an inconvenience, a simple inconvenience. I know it's a person, but it's inconvenient. In your worldview, Danny, is that okay?
It depends on the stage. For zygotes, embryos, and early fetal development, I'm not against it. I don't disprefer it, or whatever the opposite of prefer is.
Okay, so 2-3 months in. Is that
Indifferent. I would be indifferent.
okay? So there's a baby inside. Like, oh, you can see the sonogram with the baby.
Mhm.
Is that okay then?
I'd be rather uncomfortable. I wouldn't prefer a woman to abort anything that has those features that I listed.
Okay, thank you. Chloe, you
All right.
want Travis, sorry, Chloe.
Yeah, go
Travis.
with Travis.
Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
No problem. I just real quick wanted to just mention, to steer it back a little bit towards abortion. I obviously, I understand your question, pro-life logic, and but in fairness with what Danny was expressing, clearly, if we're talking about at what point someone's gonna consider something a life or value it the same as someone who was born, there may be disagreements as far as at what point that is. Obviously, there's a very clear difference between a fetus in its early stages when it doesn't have the prefrontal cortical development required for cognition or self-awareness. There's a clear difference between that and something that is, right? So yeah, and that's something I tried to touch on briefly. I know there's a lot of information before. Clear at what point you get to that point. Danny has criteria. A lot of people have criteria. So it's not that, so when you're saying that it's totally, when you call it arbitrary, what he's saying, I just want to reiterate, there is a very clear difference between something that has the ability to be aware and has cognition versus something that isn't. So yeah, you may be able to critique his specific criteria as, maybe not clearly defined, as opposed to some other pro-choicers but I don't think it's arbitrary for that reason. We're talking about, an objective thing, like as far as the development of the brain.
We have clear.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
As pro-lifers, we have clear objective criteria. Have you guys ever heard of the characteristics of life? There's 8 characteristics of life, and I have them pulled up. I have explicit notes on it, and I can show
But
you.
you understand bacteria fit the description.
We're not arguing about bacteria. We're arguing
But they
about
fit those characteristics that you're talking about.
Let me finish, Danny, and then you can respond. Okay, Danny, you'll get the floor to respond. Go ahead, Chloe.
I'll agree with you on bacteria. Like, that's not a problem. But we're arguing abortion. We're arguing preferences, right? That's fine. I'm going to grant it. But the fact of the matter is, you're stating your preferences. Our preferences are that a single cell, a fertilized zygote, whatever you want to call it, all fine with us, right? It's going to fit all 8 characteristics: cellularity, reproduction, nutritional requirements, growth and development, irritability, homeostasis, mutation, adaptation. They fit. A fertilized egg, a fertilized zygote, right, fits the criteria. So that's if we're going to argue like Danny, that's our preferences. And then what? Then we're not going to get anywhere in the conversation because we have different preferences. One is just scientifically based, and one is just like, because that's my preference.
Yeah, so I would. That's not your preference, right? Because you don't consider something to be as valuable as a zygote, or you don't consider something having those 8 characteristics as having the kind of value that you have in mind for fetuses and babies, right? What?
Says who? We don't think we value.
Do you think of some? Go ahead.
No, who says we don't value a newly conceived zygote, a fetus, as valuable as a 10-year-old or an unborn child? That's what we're fighting for.
I'm saying that a baby possesses those 8 characteristics that you listed, and sure. you and I value babies, right? We do. Mm-hmm. Okay. But bacteria also exhibits those 8.
But we're not arguing bacteria. We're arguing.
But I'm pointing out that your criteria, these biological criteria, is not what we care about at the end of the day. I think what we care about are things that can exhibit pain, things that have beliefs and desires and hopes and dreams and those sorts of things. I think you care about that stuff.
I want to address this.
I don't think you care about things that have homeostasis, like universally, right?
What do you value potential, Danny?
To some extent, yeah, but less so. Significantly less so.
So with something that has the potential to have a working mind and beliefs and the potential to exhibit pain, what do you call it, pain behavior?
Behavior. Yeah,
Pain behavior. Do you care about the potential to exhibit pain behavior?
It depends. Usually not. Because for instance, an egg and a zygote about to fertilize, that has the potential to form a person, right? And I wouldn't really, I don't care about sperm and eggs. I really don't, unless you.
Yeah, but a sperm and an egg do not have potential to.
Oh, they do, right? If they're about to fertilize, they do.
No. So when a fertilized egg has potential to exhibit pain behavior and a mind or a human bodily form, they have potential for that. An egg and a sperm separately do not. So we're talking about when an egg and a sperm.
They do. Look, right before fertilization is a sperm and egg, and if you let it go, if you let causality do its thing, it will form into a zygote, right? And that will form, as you're saying, eventually to some kind of person.
Yeah, so we're talking about a zygote because you're saying at some point you don't care about a zygote, and then at another point you do. So I'm asking you.
Are you not saying that?
I'm asking about a fertilized egg.
Let's start with agreement. I'm fine with saying that in normal pregnancies, a zygote has potential for something like you and I, right?
Yeah. Do you care about that? Do you care about potential?
Sorry, what?
Yeah. Do you care? Do you care about the potential to exhibit pain behaviors?
Sometimes, usually not. I'll tell you cases where I do care and cases where I don't.
What's a case that you care about the potential with no prior history to exhibiting pain behaviors, but the potential in the future to prohibit?
So I had a coworker that had a hard time conceiving. She really wanted a baby, and it took years. And finally, they got something, right? They got a zygote, and I care about that zygote immensely, but not because it's a zygote, because of the fact that they really wanted a baby. And they were having difficulty getting a baby. So I care about the zygote. It's called extrinsic value. The value is outsourced.
So not because of what it is, but because the mother wanted it and put value into it. That's why you care about it.
That's why I care, right? Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's, again, no standard of it. It's just because they care about it, I care about it. Because if the mother can't want it,
look, if morality and values are totally independent of what we care about, then what are we even talking about?
Yo, this is tough.
So,
go ahead.
Just from a Christian point of view, and to answer Danny's question, what makes a fetus, a newly conceived zygote, because zygote is just basically egg sperming together, it becomes a zygote. That's this medical term. The thing that makes the zygote a human being different from bacteria, because they fulfill the 8 characteristics of life, is because from a Christian worldview, you put it in a Christian worldview, it all makes sense why a human life is going to be superior to bacteria. Mm-hmm. So just kind of like, I'm trying to not necessarily like.
Let's say Christianity is true. Let's just say, I won't grant it.
But I'm giving you.
I know, but I'm going to show you my view is compatible. I know this is going to sound weird, but I think my view is compatible with Christianity because you care about
Impossible.
God. Well, let me show you why. Let me show you why. You all care about God's preferences, God's stances, right? Ultimately, you're Christians and you care about following Jesus Christ, and that gives you imperatives, right? And the fact that God cares about all human life is you're sensitive to that. You care about God's appearance.
Why does God care about human life?
I don't think there's going to be a good answer to that.
I can give it to you.
Well, you see, it's with the infinite regress, and Avery never really answered this question. Is there an infinite regress of God's preferences, or does it bottom out to a fundamental preference to where if you ask God why, God's going to say, that's just my ultimate preference? It's the same thing.
Go ahead, Avery. I don't know.
All right. So, Danny, would you say, Danny, that in your own kind of worldview, would you say that you're your own God? Just for the chat, obviously, these questions are really to you. Do you view yourself as your own God? Just for the chat.
If what you I don't see myself as God, but I have my preferences and I make decisions and actions based on my preferences and desires and my stances. If that's what you mean by God, then fine.
Okay, and so then obviously, because you don't believe in God, everybody can have these preferences and no one can say whether they're moral or immoral since you don't believe in God, correct?
No. God could exist. My view would not change, right? God has his preferences. God has his values. I have mine. And Christians are the kind of people that prefer to align themselves with God's preferences.
Danny, but you can't compare yourself to God. I know I'm the host, but anyways, I just.
Wait, does God not have values?
But listen, Danny, you can't compare yourself to God because he's God. He
Yeah,
knows.
I have a question for Danny.
Go ahead, Lon.
So Danny, let's say that you're married.
I am.
I think
I'm
he is
you are
married.
Okay, awesome. Okay. And do you have any kids?
No, I'm not planning on it either.
Okay. Well, let's say that your wife got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say she got pregnant. And let's say she preferred, had a preference to end the life of that baby, but you had a preference to preserve the life of that baby and to raise it and things of this nature.
Yeah.
What happens from there? Would you let your wife abort and kill your baby?
Right. So if it's a fundamental preference, meaning that, because again, there can be preferences that come from other preferences. But if my wife just tells me, I just fundamentally prefer this, I don't know how to, I just prefer it. Like I prefer red over blue, there's nothing to argue about. And if I was really had a strong preference, what I would do is obstruct her preference.
What do you mean obstruct it?
Where it would be difficult for her to do that. Now it depends on what's going on, but that's, I'm acting.
Wait. Time out. What do you mean you would obstruct her preference? What do you mean by that?
So when you desire something, you can cause someone to fail, right? Someone else can cause you to fail. So if I desire to unalive you, right, you can cause me to fail, right? That's what I would do. So if let's say I'm a pro-lifer and my wife is a pro-choicer, okay, and she says I'm going to unalive my baby, and I ask her, well, why? What do you? And she just does the same thing I did. Like it's just fundamental, right? I don't have a underlying inference to it. It's just my fundamental preference. At which case, I wouldn't drive her, right? I would make it very difficult for her to get an appointment. I would beg. I would do things to cause her preferences to change.
What if she never changes the preferences?
Well, then I just lose, and it's a sad world.
You lose?
Yeah.
It's a sad world.
And I fail because look, we have conflicting preferences. Only one of us can succeed.
Yeah. So this is my thing. When you're saying that you have conflicting preferences and only one of you can succeed, this shows the baselessness of it, and it's just two people whose opinions or desires are just going against each other with no fundamental standard to say which one is actually the right choice, which one is actually the right position.
Again,
it's just I prefer this, you prefer that, so I'm going to try to stop you from fulfilling your preference, and you're impeding on my preference. It's just preference against preference.
Again, you're committed to this view unless you accept something like infinite regress of preferences, because you're going to have fundamental preferences, right? Do you have fundamental preferences?
I do.
Okay. Does it make sense to ask why did you infer to those?
Yeah. So what again, I'm going with you on this person's fundamental expresses her fundamental preferences, right? Why she like the baseline of why she wants to abort and kill this baby. That opposes your fundamental preferences of why you decide that you want to keep the baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, because she brought up Christianity, actually, this is the way I see the relationship between Satan and God, right? The point is that God has his values, Satan has his, okay? And in the end, I mean, what do you think God's going to tell Satan? You have the wrong values? Well, but Satan's just going to say, by me saying I have the wrong values, you're just saying that I don't have your values, God, right? And God, what is God going to say? But yeah, you don't have my values, right? And so then it's a battle. It's a spiritual war, right? And guess what? God wins at the end, and too bad for Satan, right? That's how I look at when we look at politics, when we look at moral disputes and stuff. It's our values and preferences bouncing off each other. There are going to be conflicting ones. Now, there are things that we can do to change each other's preferences, but that's causality. That's not argumentation, right?
So you don't. It sounds like you don't really have a belief in like any real morals or.
But
like,
nor do you.
There's no.
Is there morality outside of God's preferences?
No, I do. No,
Is there
that's the
values
thing.
outside
That's
of God's
well,
preferences?
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the things that go outside of God's preference, since He's judge and creator, is morally
Absolutely.
wrong.
To
You
us, it's
know?
Wait, no, but you
Yeah.
agree that that morality is a function of God's values, right?
Sure.
God, okay, that's compatible with my view. I'm saying that.
No, it's not.
Why not?
Because you don't draw your morality. Well, it's not really morality. It's just preference. You're not saying that your wife was wrong for wanting to abort your child.
I don't know what that
You're
sense of
ju-
you see there. You're
you're just
begging the
saying,
question. You're
no, I'm
begging the
not.
question, right?
No, I am not.
When you say wrong, do you mean stance independently wrong?
I'm saying morally wrong. It's
Do you mean
morally
stance
unjust.
independently?
It's unjust. It's unjust for her to kill and end the life of a baby. When you're saying that, no, it's not about what's right and wrong. It's about
That's not what I'm saying at all,
that
right?
is exactly what you're
No,
saying.
I'm
You're
saying it's
saying it's
right and
based
wrong.
on
Look, I'm saying it's
that
right and
person's
wrong as a
preference and my preference.
It's right and wrong as according to people's preferences. It's disingenuous to say that I don't think anything is right or wrong or unjust or just. What you're doing is using a different sense of just. We both use the same language, but you're tethering it to something else, right?
What am I tethering it to?
To God knows what. I've been asking you.
No. So my standard of morality and justice goes away from my preference personally, away from your preference personally. It goes to the objective standard that is above us all, which is God, who is the moral standard.
God's preferences.
When you're
So you
exactly.
prefer,
So what I'm saying is, hold on, because regardless of if I prefer God's preferences or not, or His moral values or not, it's right is right and wrong is wrong. Rape is wrong regardless,
that's
because
compatible with my view.
no, it's not compatible with your view, because you're saying that, okay,
Do you think on
you're
my view
saying
there's such thing as right or wrong? Wait, you're characterizing my view. Do you think on my view there's such thing as right or wrong?
it sounds like it's not. It sounds like from
No,
what
there
I
is
heard
right or
from you
wrong.
so far. Okay, there is.
Preference.
So that's what I've been asking
No,
this
you're
whole
saying,
time.
look, let me.
That's what I
so-
hold on. Let
so
me
obviously, look,
can I
I
clearly
don't
put
mean
my
to
question out?
condescend here. I don't mean to condescend here, but you're not familiar with this literature here. There's a
Oh,
debate
okay.
right now in philosophy.
I think that I'm pretty.
Well, let me know when I can speak.
No, yeah, sure, no problem. I can be as illiterate and unfamiliar with whatever you want. My questions are very basic, very clear, and very simple. I don't have to have a doctorate's degree. I don't have to be in some prestigious school to ask a simple question. Is it right or is it wrong for a mother to abort, kill her child? Yes or no? When you say and you answer this question with, well, my preference is
Yes.
this, or
I answered
okay,
with
thank you. Based on what?
based on my preferences. Look, so let me get this out. What
All right,
there's this debate between. I'm going to use your terms. I use anti-realism and realism, but I can see that might not be useful terms here. There's the debate between relativist and subjectivist, and objectivist, or people that think there's rightness or wrongness independent of stances. Okay, so there's this debate, but guess what? They both use the same language. A
Right.
subjectivist thinks that there are things right or wrong, right? And so does the objectivist think there's right and wrong. But then what the idea is that the objectivist is saying is that there's a sense of right and wrong that's stance independent, right? Whereas I'm saying is that there's no such thing as stance independent right and wrong. There's only right and wrong as understood in terms of a stance, right? So when you ask me, this is naive to say that it's a simple question, right? It's not a simple question if I'm asking, what is your meta-ethical view, or what is the ground of rightness or wrongness? You think that's a basic question? Then you're just completely ignorant
All
of
right, Danny.
the conversation surrounding about meta-ethics, right? The point is that there's tons of disagreement about what the basis of right and wrong is, even though everyone uses the same language.
All right, Danny. Everybody, one moment, please. We're at the halfway point of the stream. For all of you
Halfway?
guys, weren't you going to do another 30, 40 minutes and then that's it?
I have a topic I wanted to engage Travis on.
Okay, but
whenever-
before that, everybody, please make sure to drop a like. And are we opening the chat up, Logic, for people to come in and question the host or you or not?
Well, Pro Life Chloe is gonna have an after party thing on her channel, so
Okay, so
everybody can do that there.
okay, cool. So we'll post the thing there and then we'll do that. All right. So Chloe, you wanted to ask a question to Travis or
Yeah.
Danny?
Travis, you said bodily autonomy, right? When
Yeah.
understanding bodily autonomy. Okay. So can you explain that a little bit more? Like, talk about that a little bit more so I can see where I'm going to engage you from. Like, explain a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having some lag. I don't know if.
We got you. You're good.
Hang on.
Can you ask the question again, Chloe?
Yeah. So
Can you get-
sometimes,
Can you guys hear me?
yeah. So
Yes.
sometimes they say the government doesn't have the right. Okay, this is a better question. Would you agree that the government doesn't have the right to tell women to do with what their bodies, quote unquote, to remain pregnant?
Yeah. So it's all about consent as far as consent to sex isn't consent to pregnancy. Consent to pregnancy isn't consent to remain pregnant. And so maybe one day we'll have sufficient medical science to ensure that any pregnancy could be viable, so abortion wouldn't result in the death of
Yeah. So
of the
there's
child.
definitely
But until
there's
such time that is a reality, yeah.
So there's definitely things that you could do to prevent a pregnancy, such as contraception, birth control. 100%, people can prevent pregnancy, but pregnancy, in the act of pregnancy, if you're not using contraceptives, the result is going to be a pregnancy if conception takes place. Would you agree? Like, it's not gonna nothing wild. You're either going to conceive in sex, depending on how the woman tracks your cycle, things like that, or you're not going to conceive. Those are the only two things that can possibly happen coming from pregnancy, right? Coming from sex, sorry.
Yeah, if you can become pregnant, then that's always going to be a very real risk when having sex. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Do you know what the function of the uterus is?
Yes.
Can you tell me, please? Or I could read it out. I think he's lagging a little bit.
What was
So
it?
Can
the
you
uterus.
tell
Yeah.
Chloe the function of the uterus?
What's the function of the uterus?
Travis,
Guys, I'm
I could
sorry.
just read it out.
I got that Walmart connection, man.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Chloe. Read it out.
The uterus is a female reproductive organ that is responsible for many functions in the process of implantation, gestation, menstruation, and labor. So, everything, the function of the uterus, the purpose of the uterus is to house a fetus. So, by saying it's bodily autonomy, you're technically saying, as someone who is pro choice, you're going into the uterus and you're dismantling or killing a child, an unborn child, who is actually there because that is the point of the uterus. So, how is it bodily autonomy when the function of the uterus is to hold a pregnancy? How is that bodily autonomy?
Sure. I missed the whole first part about the uterus. I couldn't really hear, but I hear the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
So I mean,
important.
this would, this kind of a naturalistic fallacy. Like, yeah, that is the function of a uterus. I'm not saying that that's not why we have uteruses. We
A woman can live
have
without a uterus, right? Women
reproductive
live
organs,
without
and
uteruses, right?
yeah,
Okay. So if they don't want to get pregnant, just like men can have a vasectomy, why can't a woman, if she never wants to get pregnant and she wants to be true, my body, my choice, why can't she just have a hysterectomy and become sterile? Instead of having that scary
because
option.
she may want to have kids at some point in the future, but
But at the same time, you can use
I guess I don't understand your question.
contraception to prevent that, right? That doesn't
Yeah,
make it less of,
yeah, but contraception isn't foolproof.
but that
It's
doesn't
still a
make the
risk.
point of the uterus, that doesn't make the function of the uterus any less important than its main job. The main function of the uterus is to house, it's there for the fetus. It's not there for anything else but to hold a fetus.
We agree.
Perfect.
We agree.
So,
We agree that is
again,
what the uterus is there for.
how is it bodily autonomy to the mother when it's there for the fetus? It's not there for the mother.
Because again, the life of the fetus or the child is dependent on the life of the pregnant person, right?
But even
Uh,
outside of the womb,
so
a newborn is still completely dependent on the mother's body.
not
That's
on the
how.
body. No, it's
Yeah,
gonna it's gonna
what is
it's gonna
breastfeeding
depend
then?
on mom's resources.
What is breastfeeding then?
No, it's not. Not all women breastfeed, but even for women who breastfeed, that has nothing to do with. There's not a. You're
It's
not.
dependent
You're
on the
talking
mother
about
and
something
the
in the
body.
womb. Yeah, but
Uh-huh.
no, there's dependency, but it's not dependent on the body. It's not a violation of bodily autonomy to feed a,
Yeah.
a
No, I don't
living
think it's right, because
born
I don't
kid.
believe in bodily autonomy, right? Or the so-called right, because the government still tells you can't walk around outside naked, right? What if someone wants to walk around outside naked? Would you say that violates bodily
That
autonomy? Your argument is bodily autonomy.
it
That's what
doesn't
I'm
violate
asking you a
bodily
question about.
autonomy.
I asked you, one of your
Yeah,
arguments is bodily
let me.
autonomy and what the government says you can and cannot do with your body, aka abortion. They cannot force you
I
to remain pregnant.
Yeah, but I don't think you. I don't think you're understanding the concept of bodily autonomy. It's not
I understand it completely, my friend.
that I'm not going to obey the speed limit because I want to get somewhere fast, and it's my body. That's not what we're talking about. The pregnancy. I mean, we're very privileged now, as far as our advanced medical knowledge and the things that we have. Where pregnancy, in a developed country isn't as big a risk as it used to be. But it's still, this thing is inside of the pregnant person. It is dependent on their body.
What is it
There are
inside of,
permanent,
Travis?
irreversible changes that you have forever,
What is
whether
it
it's
inside
physical
of,
or
Travis?
hormonal.
With a pregnant
I
person.
mean,
It's a pregnant person. Just by the way, I don't know if you guys care. You might not care because I'm a pro-life woman, but pregnant person is a very offensive and I would say derogatory term, but that's just me.
I agree.
So it's
Really,
inside
what would you call a woman that has a baby inside?
a mother.
No. Let's say, what would you call a pregnant person?
okay. I don't want to get it. I know we've already kind of talked about, I don't want this to be a debate over, how atheist morality versus, Christian morality. And I
Well,
also
it's
don't
not.
want to get
I'm
into trans
asking you
issues.
a
That's not
basic
why we're here. That's
point.
not the
I'm
subject of the
attacking
debate. I want
bodily
to actually talk
autonomy.
about pregnancy. And
I'm attacking bodily autonomy. That's what I'm telling you what I'm attacking.
well, you're not.
Because
You're
it's inside the
conflating
woman.
bodily.
Because it's inside the woman, she has the right to choose. That's her bodily autonomy, what to do with the fetus, correct? Because it's her body, right?
Yeah. When it is in her body and dependent on her body, if she no longer consents to being pregnant, then that is a violation of her bodily autonomy.
How would a fetus ask
And the
consent?
thing is, we respect bodily autonomy no matter what in any other context. And the minute that child is born, it loses that right. It no longer has a legal right to use mom's body ever. Like that's
So
not
the
a
mother
thing.
doesn't have to
The
feed the
minute
baby
they're born.
or use the mother or use it for
No,
warmth?
that's not.
Because it's
Please, come on.
inconsistent,
Let's
Travis.
not
Your
straw man
position
each
is
other.
completely inconsistent.
It's
I know the
not, because
argument.
you're
It is
conflating
inconsistent.
bodily. Wow.
Does a
you're
fetus have its own
conflating
body?
bodily Wow, guys.
Sorry, there's a
Guys,
lag, bro.
please.
You're lagging.
You're lagging.
We're not interrupting you. You're lagging. So it seems like we're interrupting you, but we're not.
You're conflating bodily autonomy with just, I guess, just the liberty to do whatever you want, and that's not the same thing. And I'm not. I don't want to. I'm not going to straw man you guys' position. I would just appreciate it if bodily autonomy. We're talking about a very specific thing, right? We're not talking about the idea that I can do what I want because I am in my own body. That's not what that means.
But the baby's inside the mother, right? So because it's the mother's body, she has the so-called right, because the baby, which I don't know how on earth the baby could ask for consent, when I think doing the act outside of rape, which is another topic, would be basically consent, inviting the possibility of a pregnancy to happen and to occur. But the point is, if the purpose of the uterus is there for the baby, how is that automatically the mother can rip it out, take it out, stop the pregnancy from growing when it's supposed to be in there. That's how it's supposed to grow, the function of the uterus.
Again, you're making a naturalistic fallacy. That the burden would be on you to provide a justification as to why we would have the legal authority to force someone to remain pregnant against their will. Like, what is the sound justification for that?
You would have to provide why bodily autonomy, why she has the right to go in and murder another human being who's separate from the mother, though making someone inside of something doesn't make it its property. Because I'm inside my house, I am not.
I'm trying to be charitable, and I feel like you keep straw manning and
No, because you can't answer the
intentionally
question.
saying things like just to claw out the baby and this and that. No, I am answering the question, and I'm doing
No,
so.
you're not, because you've been going around in circles. You did the same thing
clearly
with
as I
biologic
can.
earlier.
Well, let's ask this. Let's ask this.
I'm not.
Does the baby itself have its own body?
Yes.
Okay. So when does what are we calling this? Bodily autonomy, right?
Mhm.
Does the baby have bodily autonomy at some point?
The child's right to life. You're saying your argument is, and if I'm wrong at any point, correct me. Your argument is that the child's right to life that we should give that child special rights because no other child, no born child, no other person has this right. But you're saying that a fetus should be given special rights so that their right to life overrides the mother's right to bodily autonomy.
Talk about
because no other living person has that right.
Chloe,
that's not straw manning.
Chloe, I thought you were the one straw manning him. This is crazy.
It's basic. It's not special rights. It's basic rights. That's the pro-life position. Life is a basic right.
I didn't get an answer to my question. Does the baby have bodily autonomy? Right to life and bodily autonomy are both basic life rights. I agree. We don't disagree. But the problem is, if a pregnant person no longer consents to being pregnant, then you have a conflict of rights. That is just the objective truth. There's a conflict of rights. The baby has a right to life, sure. The pregnant person also has a right to bodily autonomy. There, in no other instance do we prioritize someone's right to life as a justification to violate somebody else's bodily autonomy. There's zero precedence for that. So what I'm asking you is, can you offer a sound justification to grant a fetus special rights that no other person has? Wait, I'm confused. Go ahead, Chloe. But man, if you have something to say, because I'm following you.
I don't think conflicting the right to life conflicts with the right of the mother. I don't believe that. I think the mother's life and the unborn child's life is equally as important because of them being human and both of them being life from a pro-lifer's perspective. So that's what I would say. They're both equally deserve that right.
And to piggyback off of that, before you respond, I'll let you respond. But on top of that, just if we're going with even your criteria with a person not having the right to infringe on someone else's bodily autonomy, you agreed that the baby also, the infant, the embryo also has bodily autonomy or has its own body. So then that would follow that the mother does not have the right to infringe on the baby's bodily autonomy. Okay? So that's where we're at here.
No.
Could I ask?
Go ahead.
Could I ask Avery some questions?
Well, I don't want to answer your questions, man.
What?
We have 12 minutes, right, Avery? And then we're going over to Chloe's channel.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. 12 minutes, fellas.
What'd you say, Avery?
Well, I said I didn't want to answer your questions, but I was joking.
Oh, okay. Is your sense of morally right and wrong grounded in preferences?
No. But to be fair, I do want to answer your questions. I do. But Chloe is on a roll with is getting some.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt that. We can just let them finish, and then I can.
We could continue in the next one. It'll be more open and free on Chloe's channel.
Okay.
you want.
If I'm invited on Chloe's channel,
You're more
because
than welcome.
okay.
Oh dang, I wasn't supposed to.
Chloe's
invite you.
playing nice. Oh, Chloe.
Trying to be charitable in Travis's words.
All right, so go ahead. You said no, Travis. Like it's. Go ahead. Do you remember all that was said?
Yeah, so obviously I agree with you that the child doesn't have a choice here. The child doesn't have the ability to consent about anything. The child is born or is conceived. It happens. Pregnancy is something that happens to us. If like it's a consequence of our biology, and my concern is, if the person doesn't want to remain pregnant, then what is the sound? I understand, because when I asked the first time, you said, because I think they both deserve the right to life, and I'm not against the idea of anybody having a right to life. My question is, what is the sound? And I understand that's what you believe, but my question was, what is a sound justification to, in the instance of a fetus, to say this fetus's right to life should trump the pregnant person's right of autonomy over their own body, because that's not something that happens at all. The minute the child's born, they lose that privilege. They don't get to have control. If a 3-year-old child had some rare kidney disease and needed a transplant, we might think mom is a moral monster if she doesn't want to donate the kidney, but she's not forced to. You can't legally, if I drank and I got drunk and I got in a car accident and I injured someone badly and they needed a kidney to survive, and I was the only one who could do it, I would be a monster. Everybody might call me a monster if I don't want to donate my kidney to the person that I put in that situation. But the thing with bodily autonomy is I'm not legally required to do it. And like, even after we're dead, bodily autonomy still matters. We still have the final say on what happens to our body when we're dead. Like, this is something that we respect under all circumstances, under the law. I understand that you believe in the instance of a fetus, they should be granted the special right to be able to use the other person's body without their consent. And I just want to hear what your justification is for that.
Yeah, when can you show me when you can ask a baby for consent, or a baby can ask for consent? I can't do that, right?
I already said that. That was one of the first things I said, is no, the baby can't consent.
Okay, perfect. So you keep saying it didn't consent, therefore the mother's bodily autonomy trumps the baby's bodily autonomy, or you don't think the baby has bodily autonomy?
No, I'm saying I'm being consistent in respecting bodily autonomy, because I don't think that just because it's a fetus, it should have any additional rights than the kid would have the minute they're born.
Just a quick yes or no. So you do agree that the fetus has bodily autonomy, correct? Yes or no?
The fetus has bodily autonomy? I mean, yeah, but the thing is,
right,
mom's not reliant on the fetus, and mom still has bodily autonomy.
No problem. So you have the mother who has bodily autonomy, and then you have the baby who has bodily autonomy. Now, you're saying that no human has the right to infringe on either's bodily autonomy. No one has the right to do that. Okay? So
yeah,
this is where
the fetus as a sorry, go ahead.
No, you can clarify or make a point.
Yeah, I was saying the fetus, as a consequence of just how our reproduction works, is dependent on mom's body. That's just the fact of the situation.
No problem. Okay. Yeah. So it is dependent. It's using it relies on the mother's body to grow and develop and to live, but while at the same time having its own bodily autonomy. So according to your worldview, because one cannot infringe on another on another's bodily autonomy, then therefore the mother cannot infringe, even though the baby is within her body, because the baby is not her own bodily autonomy. It's not her own. It's a different bodily autonomy that's within her. She has no right to infringe upon that bodily autonomy if you're consistent.
No, I am consistent, but no, and here's why.
Okay.
Obviously, a fetus, a baby at any stage, it can't consent, right?
Okay.
The child is conceived. It needs to use mom's body. Carrying a pregnancy to term is a risk, even if it wasn't a risk. But it is. It's a big risk, and it changes your life and your body forever. But even if it wasn't a risk, it still applies. Mom has bodily autonomy. Mom, if you don't want to be pregnant, then we would be consistent the way we are with anybody else. If you no longer wish to carry this pregnancy, you would have the right to abort it.
So you would have the right to infringe on the bodily autonomy of the baby.
Yes, and like I said earlier,
that's
like,
where we're
you know,
inconsistent.
we may want, no, it's not, no, because but when we're talking about
So
autonomy,
bodily
that
autonomy doesn't
requires
matter then.
consent. No, because we're talking about autonomy requires consent, right? When we're talking about autonomy, it's about consent. The baby can't consent. I agree that the baby has a right to life. And like I said, one day we might have enough advanced medical technology so that no abortion results in the death of a fetus, that it's a non-problem. But until such time that is the case, that's just a consequence of our biology, that if you terminate a pregnancy and it's non-viable, it's going to result in the death of a fetus. That's just the way it is. And I've yet to actually hear a justification for why you should give a fetus rights nobody else has. You haven't presented an argument for that yet.
Yeah, your bodily autonomy is simply just just one having ownership of their body. Like it's their body. That's what bodily autonomy is, right? So a baby, as we agreed earlier, a baby has ownership of its own body because it's its own person, has its own body. The mother is the ownership of her own body, right? And no person is allowed, according to your worldview, to infringe on another's bodily autonomy. That's what you have said. So your worldview drops as soon as you say that a mother can infringe on the baby's bodily autonomy. She can decide to destroy
Overrule.
the baby's body, overrule the baby's bodily autonomy that is within her. It's not her own body. It's someone else's body that she's infringing on and saying, no, I don't, you have to, you can die. You're saying that's when your worldview drops.
If you no longer want to be pregnant, if you no longer consent to being pregnant, okay, that is it. If you revoke consent, then it is a violation of your bodily autonomy for that child to continue depending on your body. It's just, you know, that's just the way it is. It's not, obviously, the child can't consent, and B, the child can't consent, and the child can't say, oh, it's okay, I'll just go somewhere else, because if it's not viable, it's not viable. That's just the facts. And there's nothing inconsistent about respecting bodily autonomy, because the facts are babies needs to use the pregnant person's body. Like, that's it.
The point is that bodily autonomy is not inconsistent within itself, but your usage of it when it's applied and when it's not is when it's inconsistent. When you say that someone does not have the right to infringe on another's bodily autonomy, but yet then in the same breath say that the mother can infringe on the baby's bodily autonomy, then your criteria goes out the window. You got to find something else.
No, because under your logic, what you're saying, no. Because under your logic, again, like if somebody attacks me and I fend them off. I'm not violating their bodily autonomy.
Is the
That's not what
baby-
we're
is the
talking
baby-
about. You're
wait,
trying
is
to,
the
you're
baby
equating
attacking?
things. No,
Is the
but I'm
baby
saying
attacking
that
the mother? Okay.
the baby is reliant on mom's body. So
Yeah,
you're
not
trying
attacking
you're
her,
making
not
a false
endangering her.
equivalence. You're not even talking about what we're talking about bodily autonomy.
Wait,
And it's
how
just
is it
frustrating
that-
that we're getting hung up on this part
How-
of the
Because you're being
debate.
questioned on it, Travis. We're trying to question you on it. We're trying to get you to be consistent. Like they both have bodily autonomy.
I am
Great.
being
But you're
consistent.
saying
The only
mother's
thing
bodily
that's
autonomy overrules the baby's bodily autonomy. That's what you're saying. That's what we're trying to get you to
that's
see.
not
So
what-
it's
that's
consistent.
not what I'm saying.
Because you
that's
they
not
both
what
you're
I'm
giving
saying.
both of them bodily autonomy, but the mother's overrules the baby's bodily autonomy.
Why?
No, I'm saying the mother's bodily autonomy is trumps the child's right to
That's
life.
what
Your
we're
objection,
saying!
no, there's a
That's what we
difference.
That's literally what she
No.
just said, bro. She literally, I
Overrules
promise
the
you,
baby.
we're not even being
No,
biased.
she said-
literally
she's-
just said that's your position.
She said it trumps the bodily autonomy. And
I said
again,
overrules.
That's what you're saying. You're saying that
I
the mother's
said
bodily
the
autonomy-
child's right to life. Stop, because this is what
Go ahead, I'm
didn't-
listening.
There's a
You're saying the
different
same
right to
thing.
life and bodily autonomy are two different things, and that's the whole point.
Agreed.
That's where I'm being consistent, and you're not.
No,
Because
dude,
I'm saying
listen.
it is
Okay,
a
wait. Time out. Because I want to make sure that we understand you completely. Okay, so bodily autonomy and right to life
can
are
tell
two
you
different
don't.
things. Okay, fine.
We
Let's-
were
let's-
able
let's
to
try-
repeat your argument back to you, Travis.
Yeah,
We're literally
right.
repeating it verbatim.
But
I-
let's
I-
move this forward. Let's move this forward. Listen. Let's move this forward. So you said, for example, you said that the right to life and bodily autonomy are two different things, which I agree
Yes.
with you on. I pro-life, you agree with that too,
I
right?
agree 100%.
Oh, beautiful. So we agree that bodily autonomy and right to life are two different things. Now, here's my question to you, Travis. Is there a time where bodily autonomy overrules the right to life?
no,
Beautiful.
and that's where
So-
I'm being consistent.
Okay, good. So bodily autonomy does not overrule the right to life. The baby has the right to life. So therefore, the mother's bodily autonomy does not overrule the baby's right to life.
I think
I'm
what he
sorry,
means by
I-
right to life
I-
is that it's to the extent that it's maybe a member of our population or whatever, it's valuable, but it's not as valuable as the bodily autonomy. That's what he. I
No,
think
he
that's-
just no, that you're saying something completely different, Danny.
I
point-
actually I miss. Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
I mean,
No,
is that your
if you
view?
just-
Well, let me just ask him because there's a charitable understanding. Someone could think that fetuses or zygotes are valuable, but they're just not going to be as valuable as the autonomy of the mother's body's autonomy.
No problem.
Is that your position?
No, it's not.
Well, I did misspeak at one point because in the last question, I thought you'd ask me the opposite. I thought you were asking, oh, Power's back. Nice.
Okay.
I thought you were
Yeah.
asking me.
Oh, we were like, we're
um,
saying the same thing. It's all right.
I thought you were asking me if the right to life trumps bodily autonomy, and I said no. In the
All right. Well,
so what
you
I
got
was
the power
saying,
back, correct.
yeah,
All right.
what I was saying that the bodily autonomy does not trump someone's art. Here, sorry, it's getting confused.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
I'm saying,
That's a
I'm
Freudian
saying
slip.
that.
That's a Freudian slip right there.
Sure. So
All
what
right.
I'm saying is, it doesn't, but so if you're asking me, does bodily autonomy trump life in the instance of pregnancy, which is the only, thing where this is relevant, and in any other way, yes, it does. And we don't have any examples of respecting someone else's life above your bodily autonomy in any scenario whatsoever other than the pregnancy issue. So that's kind of why I was trying to, push Chloe on, what is the justification to give that fetus special rights that I don't have, or that a 1-month-old doesn't have, that nobody else has.
I don't think it's special rights.
But,
That's where
yeah.
you're trying to say
You
it's
can go
special
ahead,
rights. I
JP.
don't
I
think
think.
it's special rights. So
No, I was saying it's 9:30. Well, it's 9:05 p.m. and I don't know where I got the 30. Oh, I see. 1 hour and 34 minutes. I knew I wasn't going crazy. But anyways, we'll have a after party on Pro Life Chloe's channel. So as soon as we end this live stream, Chloe, please post the link in the comment section. Everybody just click there. We'll head over there, and if you're interested,
We have closing statements because I haven't said anything in 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Danny. Absolutely, Danny. Let me just finish the announcement. And just to let you guys know, in 5 days, Logic and I and a brother named Alex will be having a debate on July 9th on my channel, JP Uncut. Feel free to catch that. That'll be in 5 days. Closing statements from everybody here, but we're just going to open up those statements anyways on Chloe's channel. So go ahead. Danny, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going first. Okay. So I gave my criteria for what I care about, what my values are, what my stance is, right? I don't value things, generally speaking, especially in this context of the debate, that don't have exhibit pain behavior, don't have a mind, don't have a mental history, don't take any kind of human form. Those things I care about. Now, I was the other side was showing, well, look, if it's all a matter of preferences, what are we even doing here, right? If you're objecting to objective morality, right? Then there's not a way to arbitrate who's right or who's wrong with respect to what's the good or what's morally bad, right or wrong. This is, but I don't understand, right? Then that means that they accept a sense of right and wrong, good or bad, morally wrong or wrong, as independent of people's values, stances, preferences, and that includes God's values, preferences, and stances. I think their view of objective morality, whatever the heck that is incompatible with their own Christian view. Because on the Christian view, rightness and wrongness, goodness and bad, or morally immoral depends on God's values, preferences, stances, and desires. They have the same view as I do. And so now the question is, okay, God has his preferences. I have my preferences. You have your preferences. I take Christians to say, I prefer to align my values with God. You have people that don't believe in God like me, or Satanists or whatever, that say, I don't prefer to align my preferences with God's preferences. And it's as simple as that. My view is completely compatible with their Christian position as much as they would want to object. And if anything, if they deviate from my position that values are ultimately or a derivative of a preference, then they're talking about a sense of good and bad as independent of God's stances, preferences, desires, values, or whatever. So that's my closing statement.
Very good, very good. Danny, I do actually want to address you on the other stream. I'm hosting here, but there's a lot of things you said I want to address. So we will do that on the other stream. Travis, is there anything you want to say? Closing, and then Chloe, and then Logic, obviously. And Chloe, email me that link so that I can send it to Danny and Travis. Email it to me. Travis, if you don't have a closing statement, that is fine. We'll go with Danny's because we're gonna go to the other stream.
I've got a just a quick one real quick. I just want to, first of all, thank you guys. I'm happy to talk to, it's nice to meet Chloe and Logic. Nice to meet you guys. But yeah, basically, when we talk about, pro-life versus pro-choice, pro-choice, we're talking about the legal aspect. It's like, should people have the right to choose whether or not they want to abort a pregnancy? So basically, just to sum it up real nicely, my position is, again, I think that we should be consistent with bodily autonomy, and until there's a justification that is valid and sound as for why the fetus should have a right that other people don't. I think the problem and the inconsistency is if we do grant the fetus, is under that same logic, if parents chose to procreate with the knowledge that there's some non-zero risk for the child to inherit any number of rare diseases or genetic conditions, is bodily autonomy still suspended? Like I said, like if the kid needs mom's kidney, she's the only one who can give it to her. Should she be forced to do it legally? And if your answer is no, then, we need to come up with an argument for why the autonomy should be violated for the fetus versus the birth child. But anyway, yeah, it's been great talking to you guys, and yeah, hopefully we can maybe do this again sometime. Hit some different areas of discussion.
Now
I know
coming to
we
the
got-
after
we all
party,
got hung
Travis.
up in certain spots. I might pop in. Yeah.
All right, Chloe, you sent me the link, and then you had your sentence was connected to the link, so you need to send it again.
Let me send it again for you. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Let me send it. Resend it. Technology, man.
All right.
Should be there now.
Okay, cool. Danny, Travis, please sit tight as I get the link to send to you.
God bless you.
Bless you, love it.
All right.
Thank you.
So I think you want us to do our closing statement, JP?
If you like, I mean, we're gonna be in that other stream where it's you know. So if you like, I think everybody knows what you guys believe at this point.
Yep. I
But,
think Logic and I might have the same closing statement.
No, Chloe, something's wrong, Chloe.
Bro,
What is that?
Yeah, look.
let me. Well, I'll send it over to you again. I copied and pasted it. Let me start the stream and then I'll send it over to you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Logic.
All right. Yeah, everybody, go over to Pro Life Chloe's channel. The links are down there. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed and everything like that. We're about to hop over there and have a good time. But yeah, it's crazy to me. One of the things that I've heard today, you know, Danny tried to say that his subjective moral view is perfectly in line with Christianity. That's crazy to me, man. You know, our morality is based on God. He's the objective standard on what he prefers and what he calls, and his actions and his character is perfect and holy and good. And so we our morality is based off of that. So that's why we can look to a standard outside of ourselves and say, regardless of what your preference is or what my preference is, there is a standard line of what is morally right and what is morally wrong. And so we're going over a lot of different things. We see that with this type of worldview, it's highly inconsistent. You know, you move from one argument to another without it being substantiated. It's not based on anything. And so you have to hop from one thing to another, bodily autonomy to right to life, now right to life or bodily autonomy type of thing, or even questioning when it's a human and things of this nature. It's so inconsistent. It shows how this worldview, this pro-abortion worldview, is in shambles. It can't stand. You know, so I think we saw that today. We've seen it on display as we end this stream. Am I ending the stream right now? Because I could. Okay, all right. I'm ending the stream right now. All right,
Chloe, make sure to send that link. All
All
right,
right.
I'll see you guys
we did it.
over.
All right. Yeah, just know there's only one true God, and stay away from Islam, and also know that abortion is murder. All right. With that,
Jesus
we're out
is
of here. Jesus is Lord.